My mom lied about my twin sister's death for 24 years. My mom used to tell me I had a twin sister who died at birth, every birthday. We'd visit her memorial, but last month, my dead sister sent me a Facebook request and she looked exactly like me. What did your parents say to you as a kid that still affects you today? Growing up, Mom would tell me about my twin sister who died during childbirth. She'd say things like we were meant to be a pair, how I was lucky to survive, how sometimes when I was being difficult, she could tell I was carrying my sister's rebellious spirit too. It started when I was around 5. She'd show me this tiny pink baby hat she kept in a special box. She told me they had bought matching ones. Blue for me, pink for her. My dad never talked about it, just got really quiet whenever Mom brought it up. Mom would tell me stories about how twins have special connections. She'd ask if I ever felt lonely for no reason, or if I ever felt like someone was missing. And honestly, I did. I always did. I grew up feeling like there was this emptiness next to me that should have been filled. For my whole childhood, on my birthday, we'd visit this little memorial garden where Mom said they scattered my sister's ashes. We'd leave flowers and a small toy. I'd sit there and talk to her in my head while Mom cried quietly. It became our thing, just me and Mom. Dad never came. When I was 12, I found Mom sobbing in the bathroom holding that little pink hat. I asked her what my sister's name would have been. She told me Mabel. She said they had chosen it because it was my grandmother's name and it matched mine, Tammy and Mabel. It felt so real having a name for her. My dad left when I was 16. He and Mom had been fighting more and more. He'd drink a lot. The night before he left, I overheard them fighting. Dad was shouting that it wasn't right, that it had gone too far. Mom was crying, saying she was protecting me, protecting us. I'm 24 now. I haven't spoken to my dad in years. Mom told me he moved to Arizona and started a new family. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Last month, I got a friend request on Facebook from someone named Mabel Campbell. The profile picture was of a woman who looked exactly like me. I thought it was some kind of sick joke. I almost blocked her immediately. She sent me a message. I think you might be my sister. I was adopted at birth. I've been looking for my birth family. I called my mom screaming, demanding answers. She hung up on me, wouldn't answer my calls for days. I messaged this Mabel person back. We video chatted. It was like looking in a mirror. She had the same birthmark on her left shoulder that I have. Same weird double-jointed thumbs, same laugh. She told me she'd been raised by a couple in Oregon, loving parents. They'd always been open about her being adopted. When she turned 22, she requested her adoption records and found out she was a twin. She'd been searching for me ever since. I didn't want to believe it. How could this be true? How could my entire life be built around a lie this massive? I drove to my mom's house. I hadn't done that in months. We usually just talked on the phone. When I got there, I found her place empty. Neighbors said she'd packed up and left 3 days earlier. No forwarding address. I was losing my mind. I called my mom's sister, my aunt. She wouldn't talk to me either. Just said it was complicated and not her story to tell. I was desperate, so I did something I never thought I would do. I tracked down my dad. It took some digging, but I found him working at a garage in Phoenix. I called the number. A man answered, and I recognized his voice immediately, even after all these years. I asked if he was Albert. He went quiet. I told him who I was. He started crying. He told me everything. How my mom had severe postpartum psychosis after we were born. How the doctors had recommended she be hospitalized, but she refused treatment. How she became obsessed with the idea that having twins was dangerous, that one would hurt the other. How she threatened to hurt herself and us if Dad didn't help her. Fix it. Dad said he thought it would be temporary, that they would get my mom help, then reunite us. But Mom kept getting worse. She became convinced that Mabel was evil, that she would hurt me. Dad realized Mom was never going to get better as long as both babies were there. He made a choice. He arranged for Mabel to be adopted by a family friend who had moved to Oregon. Ricardo and his wife couldn't have children and had been looking to adopt. Dad thought it would be temporary. A few months, maybe a year. But then Mom started creating this elaborate story about Mabel dying at birth. She seemed to actually believe it. She got better when she had this narrative. The doctor said confronting her delusion might trigger something worse. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. My entire childhood. All those birthday visits to the memorial garden. All those nights I cried myself to sleep missing someone I thought was dead. It was all a lie. A fucking lie created because my mom was sick and my dad was too weak to protect us both. Dad was still talking. He said he'd tried to stay in contact with Ricardo and Maria over the years to know that Mabel was okay, but Mom found out and threatened to hurt herself if he didn't stop. She became paranoid that he was planning to bring Mabel back and take me away. That's why the fighting got so bad before he left. He couldn't take the lies anymore. but he was afraid of what Mom might do if he told me the truth. I asked him why he never came back for me after he left. He went quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Finally, he said he tried, but Mom had filed a restraining order against him, claiming he was abusive. Said she had documentation of his violent outbursts and threats. All lies, but he couldn't fight it. He was afraid if he pushed too hard, she'd disappear with me completely. I hung up and just sat there in my car, staring at nothing. My phone kept buzzing with messages from Mabel. She was worried about me. My sister was worried about me. My sister who was alive, who had been alive this whole fucking time. I drove back to my apartment in a daze. I couldn't process any of it. I kept seeing flashes of my childhood. Mom holding that pink hat, crying, me talking to Mabel at the memorial garden, the emptiness I'd felt my whole life. It wasn't grief for a dead sister. It was the actual absence of my living twin. When I got home, there was an envelope taped to my door. No address, just my name. Inside was a letter from my mom. Her handwriting was shaky, almost unrecognizable. Tammy, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm sorry for what I did to you, to your sister, to our family. I truly believed I was protecting you. In my mind, she was going to hurt you. The doctors called it psychosis, but to me, it was as real as you are. Even now, knowing she's found you, I feel the panic rising. I can't face what I've done. I can't face her. I'm sorry, I had no other choice. I called the police immediately. The tone of the letter terrified me. They took the information but didn't seem too concerned. Said adults have the right to disappear if they want to. Said they'd check some places but not to expect much. That night, Mabel and I stayed on video chat for hours. We compared our lives, our experiences. She had good parents, a normal childhood. She'd always felt that same emptiness I had, but didn't know why until she got her adoption records. I couldn't stop staring at her face, my face on someone else. It was surreal and beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. As we talked, I realized something else was bothering me. That little pink hat Mom had kept all these years. If Mabel hadn't died, where did it come from? Why would Mom have it? I mentioned this to Mabel, and she went quiet. Then she said, "My parents gave me a blue baby hat when I turned 18. They said it was what I was wearing when they got me. I felt sick. If Mabel had the blue hat and Mom had the pink one, did that mean Mom had switched our identities? Was I actually Mabel? Was my entire identity a lie too?" I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking about Mom's letter, that cryptic line about having no other choice. What did that mean? Where was she? What was she planning to do? The next morning, I got a call from a hospital 2 hours away. They'd found my mom. She'd checked herself in under a false name and taken an overdose of sleeping pills. They'd managed to save her, but she was refusing to see me. The doctor said she was in an extreme state of agitation, kept saying she had to finish what she started and protect Tammy while there's still time. I have no idea what to do. Mabel is driving down from Oregon to meet me tomorrow. Mom is in the psych ward, still convinced after all these years that my twin sister is somehow dangerous. Dad is calling nonstop, wanting to know if Mom is okay. My entire life has been shaped by my mom's words about a dead sister who was never dead. The grief, the emptiness, the yearly rituals, all based on a delusion so powerful, it tore my family apart. And now, I don't even know if I'm really who I think I am. I need to see my mom. I need answers. I need to know who I really am. And I'm terrified of what might happen when Mabel and I walk into that hospital together. Update. I didn't sleep at all after finding out Mom was in the hospital. I kept thinking about her letter, that line about having no other choice. The doctors told me she was physically stable but mentally in crisis. They were keeping her on suicide watch and had her heavily sedated. I spent the whole day before Mabel arrived just pacing my apartment, chain smoking on the balcony, a habit I'd quit 3 years ago but suddenly desperately needed. I couldn't focus on anything. I kept opening my phone to look at Mabel's pictures, comparing them to mine. We were identical, not just similar, the same person in different clothes. How could Mom have maintained this lie for 24 years? How fucking broken does your mind have to be to convince yourself one of your children is dead? Dad kept calling. I answered sometimes, ignored him other times. He was frantic about Mom, begging me to keep him updated. I was so angry with him I could barely speak. 24 years. He let this happen for 24 years. I know he was in an impossible situation with Mom's mental illness, but he left me with her. He left me alone with a woman who was so delusional she invented a dead twin. I told him Mabel was coming. He broke down crying again, asking if he could come too. I told him not yet. I couldn't handle both reunions at once. I needed to meet my sister first. My sister. The words felt strange in my mouth. I'd spent my whole life talking to a ghost, and now she was driving down Interstate 5 toward me. Mabel arrived around noon the next day. I was standing in my apartment parking lot when her car pulled in. We'd agreed to meet there rather than at the hospital. We needed time together first. I saw her through the windshield, and my heart actually stopped for a second. She parked and got out slowly, like she was afraid any sudden movement would scare me off. We just stood there staring at each other. It was like looking into a mirror, except the mirror was breathing and blinking and had tears running down its face. Neither of us moved. I don't know how long we stood there. Maybe seconds, maybe minutes. Then she whispered my name, and something broke inside me. I don't remember who moved first. Suddenly we were hugging and sobbing and laughing all at once. Her arms around me felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. She smelled like me, but different. Different shampoo, different laundry detergent, but underneath, the same. The exact same. We went up to my apartment and just talked for hours, comparing everything. Our favorite foods, both hate olives, allergies, both get hives from cheap metal jewelry, weird habits, both sleep with a pillow between our knees. We showed each other our driver's licenses, laughing at how different our signatures were. Hers was neat and curvy. Mine was a chaotic scrawl. It was like finding the other half of myself. All those years feeling incomplete. It wasn't grief. It was literally missing half of who I was supposed to be. But underneath the joy was this current of rage. Every time I looked at Mabel, I thought about what Mom had stolen from us. All the birthdays, all the fights and makeups, all the stupid twin games we could have played on people. All gone because Mom's broken mind decided one of us was dangerous. We decided to visit Mom together that evening. The hospital had called to say she was more lucid, though still refusing to see me. They thought maybe if I just showed up, she might agree to talk. They didn't know I was bringing her worst nightmare with me. On the drive to the hospital, Mabel told me more about her adoptive parents, Ricardo and Maria. They sounded wonderful, stable, loving people who had given her a normal life. They'd moved back to Oregon from Mexico just before the adoption. They had no idea about Mom's psychosis. Dad had just told them he and Mom couldn't keep both babies for personal reasons. They'd stayed in occasional contact with Dad until Mom found out. Mabel had found Dad first about 6 months ago. That's how she got my name and was able to find me online. Dad had begged her to wait, saying he needed to prepare Mom, needed to find a way to tell me. But Mabel got tired of waiting. She wanted to know her twin. I couldn't blame her. At the hospital, we decided Mabel would wait in the car while I went in first. We didn't want to shock Mom too badly. The psychiatric unit was depressing. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, the smell of disinfectant barely covering something worse. The nurse led me to Mom's room, warning me she was still fragile. Mom looked small in the hospital bed. Her hair was tangled, face pale. She had an IV in one arm and restraint cuffs on both wrists, though they weren't currently attached to anything. Hospital protocol after a suicide attempt, the nurse explained. She started crying immediately, saying she was sorry. She never meant for me to find out this way. I sat in the chair next to her bed, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break my ribs. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her until her teeth rattled, but she looked so broken already. I asked her why. Just that, why? She turned her face away, staring at the wall. She said the doctors had tried to explain it to her over the years. Postpartum psychosis, severe delusions, paranoid thinking, but none of that explained how real it had felt. How she could still close her eyes and see baby Mabel's face twisted with rage, tiny fingers reaching for my throat. I felt sick hearing this. She described hallucinations of my infant sister trying to strangle me. Said sometimes she'd wake up in the night and see Mabel standing over my crib, even though Mabel wasn't there. Said the voices told her only one twin could survive. That's how it worked with identical twins. One always tried to absorb the other. I asked her about the hats. The blue one Mabel had, the pink one Mom kept. She looked confused. Said they'd always been that way. Blue for me, pink for Mabel. I was Tammy. Mabel was Mabel. At least she hadn't switched our identities. That was one small mercy. I took a deep breath and told her Mabel was here. She went completely still, like a rabbit spotting a hawk. Then she started screaming. Not words, just this horrible, high-pitched sound. She pulled against the restraints so hard the IV ripped out of her arm. Blood splattered across the white sheets. Nurses rushed in. They pushed me out of the room while they sedated her. I stood in the hallway shaking, listening to my mother scream that the evil one was coming to kill me, that she had to save me, that she'd rather die than let Mabel near me. I stumbled back to the car where Mabel was waiting. She took one look at my face and started crying. I told her what happened. We sat there, holding hands across the center console, while Mom's screams echoed in my head. The hospital called the next morning. Mom was awake but heavily sedated. She was asking for me. Just me. The doctor strongly advised against bringing Mabel. He said Mom's delusion about Mabel being dangerous was fixed and unshakable. Confronting her with the real Mabel might push her over an edge she couldn't come back from. Mabel and I talked it over in my apartment. She was hurt but understood. She'd waited 24 years to find me. She could wait a little longer for Mom. We agreed I'd go alone, try to talk to Mom calmly, see if there was any part of her that could be reasoned with. When I got to the hospital, Mom was sitting up in bed. They'd moved her to a different room with no windows and nothing she could use to hurt herself. She looked almost normal, just tired and sad. When she saw me, she reached for my hand. She told me she loved me, that everything she'd ever done was to protect me. I tried to stay calm. I told her Mabel wasn't dangerous, that she was kind and gentle and just wanted to know her mother. Mom's eyes hardened. She said I didn't understand, that Mabel would seem perfect at first. That was how she worked. She'd make me love her, and then when I trusted her completely, she'd destroy me. I asked her how she could possibly know that when Mabel had been taken away as a newborn. Mom said she just knew, that mothers know these things, that twins were special, one good, one evil. It had always been that way through history. It was like talking to a brick wall. Every rational argument I made, she countered with this bizarre twin mythology she'd created. She believed it completely. I could see that now. This wasn't just a lie she'd told me. It was a reality she'd constructed and lived in for 24 years. Before I left, she grabbed my arm. She said if I let Mabel into my life, one of us would end up dead. That's how it always ended with twins like us. She'd seen it in her dreams for years. Me lying in a pool of blood, Mabel standing over me. Or worse, Mabel lying dead and me transformed, my soul gone, replaced by darkness. I left the hospital feeling hollow. How do you reason with that level of delusion? How do you bridge the gap between her reality and actual reality? Mabel and I spent the next few days getting to know each other. We went through photo albums comparing our childhoods. I met her adoptive parents over video chat. They seemed shell-shocked by the whole situation but supportive of Mabel. They'd had no idea about Mom's condition. They said Dad had just told them it was a private adoption because he and Mom couldn't handle twins. Dad kept calling, wanting to come see us both. I wasn't ready. My anger at him kept flaring up. He should have fought harder, should have found a way to keep us together, or at least to tell me the truth sooner. Part of me understood the impossible position he'd been in, but another part couldn't forgive him for leaving me with Mom, for allowing me to grow up talking to a memorial garden where no one was buried. The hospital called again yesterday. Mom was refusing to eat. She was convinced Mabel had poisoned her food. The doctor asked if I would come talk to her. Maybe I could convince her to eat. I went alone again. Mom looked worse, thinner, her eyes sunken and darting around the room. She whispered that Mabel was in the hospital somewhere, that she could sense her. I told her Mabel was at my apartment. Mom started crying, begging me not to go back there, said it wasn't safe. I tried a different approach. I showed her pictures of Mabel and me together. Mom refused to look at them. She kept her eyes squeezed shut, shaking her head. I told her about all the similarities we'd discovered, how it felt to finally meet the person I'd been missing my whole life. Mom opened her eyes then. She looked at me with such sadness it broke my heart. She said very quietly that she'd failed, that she'd tried so hard to keep us apart, to save me, but in the end, she couldn't. She asked me to forgive her for what she had to do next. I didn't understand what she meant then. I do now. After I left, Mom somehow convinced a nurse she was feeling better. She ate some food, took her meds, seemed calmer. They relaxed the protocol slightly. During shift change, she managed to get out of the unit. By the time they realized she was gone, she'd left the hospital entirely. The police are looking for her now. They've been to my apartment, taken her description. Mabel and I are staying at a hotel. The officers suggested it might be safer until they find Mom. They didn't say it outright, but the implication was clear. Mom might try to hurt Mabel. Or me. Or both of us. Mabel is sleeping in the bed next to mine as I type this. I keep looking over at her, still not quite believing she's real. Still not quite believing my entire childhood was built on a lie so massive it warped everything. Dad is driving up tomorrow. I finally agreed to see him. We all need to figure out what to do, how to find Mom before she does something we can't undo. I'm scared of what will happen when we find her. I'm scared of what she might do. Mostly I'm scared that when I look at her now, I don't see my mom anymore. I see a stranger who stole half my life from me, who is still trying to steal more. Last update. Dad showed up at our hotel early the next morning. I hadn't seen him in 8 years. He looked older, grayer, with deep lines around his eyes. Mabel answered the door while I hung back. Watching them embrace felt surreal. She had grown up without him, yet they fell into each other's arms like they'd known each other forever. I stayed frozen by the window, unable to move. We sat in that generic hotel room trying to figure out where Mom might have gone. Dad thought she might head to the memorial garden, the place she'd convinced herself held Mabel's ashes. It had been her place of comfort, of reinforcing the lie. Mabel asked about other significant places from our childhood. I mentioned the cabin we used to rent each summer before Dad left. Mom had loved it there, said it was the only place she felt at peace. Dad's face changed when I mentioned the cabin. He said they'd actually owned it briefly, early in their marriage. They'd sold it when Mom got pregnant with us, needed the money for baby expenses. But Mom had always talked about buying it back someday. On a hunch, Dad called the current owners. Turned out they were an elderly couple who only used it during hunting season. The rest of the year it sat empty. Dad asked if anyone had been there recently. The owner said he didn't think so, but they only checked on it every couple of months. We decided to drive up there, about 3 hours north into the mountains. The police had already checked Mom's apartment, her usual spots, even the memorial garden. They had nothing. We left them the cabin address and headed out. The drive was tense. Dad kept trying to explain himself, justify his choices. How he'd been young and scared when Mom's psychosis started. How the doctors had said separating us might be temporary, just until Mom stabilized. How by the time he realized Mom was never going to accept reality, she'd already created this elaborate story about Mabel dying. How the doctors warned him that challenging her delusion directly could trigger a psychotic break that might endanger everyone. I understood intellectually, but emotionally? I couldn't stop thinking about all those birthdays at the memorial garden. All those nights I'd talked to a sister I thought was dead. The emptiness that had shaped my entire identity. Mabel was quieter than I expected. Occasionally she'd ask Dad questions about their life in Mexico before they moved back to the States, about his friendship with Ricardo. Not accusing, just trying to understand. The cabin was exactly like I remembered from childhood. Small, wooden, isolated at the end of a dirt road. Dad told us to wait in the car while he checked it out, but I ignored him. This was between Mom and me, and Mabel, especially Mabel. The cabin door was unlocked. Inside it was dark and musty. Different furniture from what I remembered, but the same layout. Mom wasn't in the main room or kitchen. I called her name softly. No answer. We found her in the back bedroom, sitting on the floor surrounded by old photographs and papers. Dad tried to approach her, but she shrank back against the wall. She wouldn't look at Mabel at all, kept her eyes fixed on me or the floor. When Mabel took a step forward, Mom started humming loudly, like she was trying to block out her presence. I knelt down beside Mom, careful to keep some distance. Asked her to come back to the hospital with us. Told her we were worried about her. She shook her head, still humming. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small orange bottle. Prescription pills. My stomach dropped. She said she'd been saving them, one by one, sneaking them past the nurses. She'd known this day would come eventually. Known that Mabel would find me, that the evil one would come back to finish what she started. I told her Mabel wasn't evil, that she was my sister, my twin, that she'd never hurt anyone. Dad was on the phone with 911. I could hear him giving directions to the cabin. Mom heard it too. She looked at the pill bottle in her hand, then back at me. Asked if I wanted to know the truth, the real truth about why she did what she did. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Mabel moved closer, sitting on the floor near us. Mom flinched but didn't start humming again. Mom said it started before we were even born. She'd had dreams. Vivid, terrifying dreams about twins fighting inside her. One protecting, one destroying. When we were born, she said she could feel it immediately. Which one was which? She said she'd tried to tell the doctors, but they just gave her pills that made her thoughts foggy. She described watching baby Mabel in her crib, convinced she could see darkness moving behind her eyes. Said she'd catch Mabel staring at me with an expression no baby should have. Said sometimes in the night she'd find Mabel's crib empty. The baby somehow standing over my crib despite being too young to stand or climb. It was chilling listening to her describe these hallucinations as if they were absolute reality. In her mind, she'd saved me. She truly believed she'd protected me from something evil. She looked at Mabel again, her expression softening slightly. She said she'd never hated Mabel. She'd mourned her. In her mind, the real Mabel had been taken over by something dark before she was even born. The separation wasn't punishment, it was mercy. She thought if Mabel was raised away from me, maybe the darkness would fade. Maybe Mabel could have a normal life. It was twisted logic, but I could finally see the full picture of her delusion. In her mind, she hadn't been cruel. She'd been saving both of us in the only way she could. I heard sirens in the distance. Mom heard them too. She looked down at the pill bottle again, but I gently took it from her hand. She didn't resist. She looked exhausted, empty. The fight had gone out of her. The paramedics arrived with police. They took Mom out on a stretcher, back to the hospital, but to a different unit this time, one with higher security. The doctor said she'd likely be committed to a long-term psychiatric facility. Her delusions were too fixed, too resistant to treatment for her to be on her own. That was 3 weeks ago. Mabel went back to Oregon after a few days, but we talk constantly. She's planning to move closer. Not same city close, but close enough for regular visits. Her adoptive parents have been amazing through all this. They even reached out to Dad, offered to meet halfway so we could all have dinner together. One big, complicated, broken family trying to heal. Dad and I are talking more. I'm still angry, still hurt, but I'm trying to understand. He was 24 when all this happened, same age I am now. I can't imagine facing what he faced. He made the wrong choice, but I'm starting to see there were no good choices available. I visit Mom twice a week. Sometimes she's lucid, sometimes not. On her good days, she can look at pictures of Mabel and me together without becoming agitated. She'll never fully accept that her delusion wasn't reality, the doctors say. That's not how fixed delusions work. But with medication and therapy, she's learning to live alongside a reality that contradicts her internal one. Last visit, she told me something that keeps echoing in my head. She said, "I gave you a ghost for a sister because I thought it was safer than the alternative." In her broken mind, that made perfect sense. She thought she was protecting me from something terrible. Instead, she stole half my life from me, stole my twin, my identity, my understanding of who I was and where I came from. All those years I felt incomplete. I was incomplete. The worst part is she'll never fully understand what she did, never fully grasp the magnitude of what she took from us. Mabel and I are planning a trip together, just the two of us. We're trying to make up for lost time, though we know we can never get those 24 years back. Sometimes I still wake up thinking it was all a dream, that Mabel is still just a ghost I talk to in my head. Then she'll text me something only a twin would understand, and I remember she's real. She's alive. She's been alive this whole time. Dad told me recently that he used to take me to visit Mabel secretly when I was very young, just a few times before Mom found out and threatened to hurt herself. I was too young to remember. He has one picture of us together as toddlers, just before the visits stopped. We're holding hands, wearing matching overalls. I look happy, normal. Not like a child who would grow up talking to a memorial garden. I asked Mabel if she remembered those visits. She didn't. We were too young. Another thing Mom stole from us, even the memory of knowing each other. The doctors say Mom's condition was rare, but not unheard of. Postpartum psychosis affects a small percentage of new mothers, and in some cases, it can develop into long-term delusional disorder if not treated properly. Dad should have insisted on treatment. The doctors should have recognized the severity sooner. The system failed all of us. Mom will likely never leave psychiatric care. Her delusions run too deep, are too resistant to treatment. In her mind, she's still protecting me from something dangerous. She still believes she made the right choice. And maybe that's the most heartbreaking part of all. She destroyed our family thinking she was saving it. The last time I visited Mom, she was having a relatively good day. She looked at a picture of Mabel and me together without flinching. Then she said something that gave me a tiny sliver of hope. She said, "You look happy together. Not afraid, not worried. Just an observation. A small crack in the delusion, maybe. A tiny ray of light."